For millennia, people have fantasized about whether there are other planets like the Earth, where humans can live and technically advanced civilization can develop. At some times people thought there were an infinite number of such places, while at other times we have believed that Earth was entirely unique. But it was always speculation only, until today. In recent years it has become clear that the number of Earth-like planets extends beyond even our wildest fantasies. But how Earth-like are they actually? Does water flow on their surfaces? Is anyone living there? While we can't directly see the many planets, we can measure their effect using three separate methods. One method is known as the transit method. Here one searches for the periodic dimming of the stellar brightness as a planet moves in front of the star. This method is the one that is used by the Kepler satellite to discover nearly 3,000 exoplanets, planets orbiting around other stars than our own Sun. Another method is the so-called radial velocity method, or Doppler method. Here one measures how a planet's gravity pulls the star back and forth during its orbit, making the star wobble. The most accurate measurements today are able to measure if a star, maybe 100 light years away, is moving toward us at the pace of a turtle. However, even this enormous accuracy allows us only to discover planets as large as the largest planets in our own solar system, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus and Neptune, and not Earth-like exoplanets. To find planets similar to our own, a third method has been introduced, known as Gravitational Microlensing. This method measures how light changes when two stars align with one another. If the nearest of the star is orbited by a planet, the planet can be identified by the way the light from the background star is altered on its way towards us. One sees the fingerprint of the planet in the light of the background star. Together, the three methods have shown us that there are more planets than stars in the sky. Just our own Milky Way contains 100 billion stars, but is home to 300 billion planets. And maybe even more surprising is that as many as 10 billion of them resembles the Earth. They are not gaseous planets like Jupiter without a solid surface, nor are they small as Mars or the Moon, unable to have an atmosphere. And they are all orbiting the star at such a distance that if it was our Earth which was placed there, lakes, rivers and running water would exist at their surface. Nevertheless, we have never received a radio signal from any civilization there, and the supermarket is not teeming with extraterrestrials on visit. And why not actually, when there are billions of Earth-like planets? Is it because our own solar system is very spatial, an optimal place for the development of life? And if so, what is it that is so unique about our solar system? It is obviously not the Earth's existence, because 10 billion other stars in the Milky Way have a planet that resembles the Earth. The solar system and all other planetary systems were formed from a collapsing cloud of interstellar gas and dust. Most of the material became the central star, in our case the Sun. The bulk of the rest was expelled into interstellar space via a violent jet stream. But a tiny amount of gas and dust remained as a disk around the star. That's where the planets formed. In the inner part of the cloud, it was so hot that only very rare elements, such as stones and metals, could clump together to form planets. In the outer part of the disk, it was so cold that it will have been snowing. Water is so abundant that once it can form snow, planetary pieces as large as 10 times the mass of the Earth can build up, like massive snowballs. If the gas cloud still exists at the time when the ice planet had grown to 10 times the mass of the Earth, then gas would start collapsing into the ice planet, transforming it into a large gas clump 100 times of the mass of the Earth or even more. This is how Jupiter and Saturn formed. The huge planet will now move through the remnant of the gas cloud, like a plane without an engine. They would quite rapidly fall towards the star and end up in a small orbit like the Earth. And this is how most exoplanetary systems appear, which we can observe with the radial velocity method. In our own solar system, there must have been just enough gas to form our planetary giants Jupiter and Saturn, while the rest of the gas cloud must have disappeared at precisely the moment when Jupiter and Saturn was fully formed, so that they could move unhindered to empty space without being slowed by the gas cloud and drifting inward. This appears to be quite an unusual coincidence, a knife-edge balance between the formation of Jupiter and Saturn and the disappearance of the gas disk. Over the next 700 million years, Jupiter and Saturn move slightly inwards until they reach a point where Jupiter revolves the Sun twice, each time Saturn orbits once. Such a pattern is quite disturbing to the rest of the solar system, and it would have sent the more than 1,000 billion leftover of comets and asteroids from the planetary formation in all possible directions. Some of them will have collided with the Earth and the Moon. We can determine the age of the lunar craters and count how many there are, which shows us that Earth and the Moon were quite suddenly bombarded with 2,000 tons of cosmic material on each square meter of its surface, exactly when the solar system was 700 million years old. This is the same age as the oldest preserved portions of the Earth's crust. Now, comets are basically just large ice chunks. So if the impactors really were comets, the 2,000 tons per square meter would add up to precisely the amount of water there is in the world's oceans today. In this way, we can explain what became of the bombarding comets. The very few cometary pieces that are currently housed in geological museums around the world show that they do not only contain water, but also complex pre-biological molecules. Large organic molecules that may have been the building blocks to the first life. In a particular piece, which fell in Australia in 1969, 11 of the 20 amino acids that makes up the proteins in all living organisms on Earth were identified. And perhaps even more surprising, 3 of the 5 letters, that is the nucleotide bases, that form the genetic alphabet were also discovered. A similar piece of comet fell over Maribo in Denmark in 2009. Is it really so that the precise timing between Jupiter and Saturn's formation and the planetary cloud's disappearance was the first step toward our appearance? Their existence and subsequent unique movements appears to be very special to our solar system. And without them, we wouldn't have had the large cosmic bombardment 3.8 billion years ago, which might have been the basis for the emergence of life on Earth. And this big cleanup of comets and asteroids 3.8 billion years ago may have had yet another beneficial effect. Without it, Earth would still be hit by comets now and then, often resulting in the atmosphere being ripped off. So we can thank this large cleanup, this bombardment, and hence Jupiter and Saturn, for avoiding such devastating catastrophes today. And if Jupiter-Saturn planets are really as rare as we think they are, then it's maybe not so strange that space is so eerily silent when we tune even our most sensitive radio telescopes to listen if anybody makes a sound. But of course we also want to know if all this is really true, if there really is nobody other than us. We're therefore now in the process of building the first giant telescope that will be able to take direct photos of the nearest Earth-like exoplanets. The ELT telescope will be larger than the Eiffel Tower, and it will have a mirror the size of a football field. Nonetheless, it won't be cities or bridges that we will be able to observe, rather whether the atmosphere is in chemical or biological equilibrium, whether there are some organisms that sends oxygen into their atmosphere, just as Earth's plant life does, or methane as some of Earth's bacteria does, and whether there is water vapor as in the Earth's atmosphere. This would give us the first sign that there are others than just us that have been blessed to have oceans, lakes and rivers of flowing water on the surface of their planet. So in 10 years, when the ELT telescope will stand ready on a mountaintop beneath the world's clearest skies in Chile's Atacama Desert, then we will be ready to embark on the next chapter in the story of life's richness. Where are they, the space aliens, or are there none? Despite the fact that there are 10 billion Earth-like planets, it looks like that maybe we are the only technological civilization in all of this enormous Milky Way galaxy. Then we are the super civilization of the Milky Way. So seemingly it doesn't get any better than this.